The refugee ship Wandering Hope jolted as yet another engine failed. Commander Jan gripped the cold railing and stared at the red warning lights blinking across the bridge. His people had been fleeing for 3 long years, drifting from system to system like shadows in the void. "Sir, that was the last reserve engine," reported Lieutenant Minho. The young man's voice carried exhaustion. They all carried it now. "We can maybe hold out 2 more months." Jan nodded, silent. Around him, the crew worked quietly, no one wasting words. Complaints had long since died. What purpose did they serve? Every race in the galaxy had turned them away. The Cathori were poisoned now, unwanted, unwelcome, cursed. Through the main viewport, Jan saw the others, 4, sometimes 7 vessels, all carrying the final 50,000 of his people. Once, the Cathori had numbered in billions. Once, they had been the galaxy's master terraformers, transforming barren rocks into paradise. Civilizations had begged for their aid. That was before the nightmare. Jan closed his eyes, resisting. Memory. 2 centuries passed. A circle of Cathori scientists had gone mad. They believed they could improve other species, rewriting genes without consent. Thousands had been used as subjects. Most died. Survivors became broken things, no longer who they were. The galaxy had been right to end it. But then it had judged all Cathori guilty. Everyone, even unborn children. "Commander," Navigator Summon called. "Incoming transmission from the Altrian fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Vex appeared in hologram, tall and blue-skinned. Face twisted with disgust. "Cathori vessel, you have 20 minutes to vacate our territory." "No more warnings." "Admiral, please," Jan pleaded. "We have children here, sick, dying people. We need supplies." "You should have thought of your children before your kind poisoned the stars," Vex spat, cutting him off. 20 minutes, gene thieves. After that, we fire." The hologram vanished. Jan sagged. Gene thieves. That was what they were now. Not terraformers, not survivors. Just thieves who stole bloodlines. "Set course for the next system," he ordered, voice heavy. "Sir," Minho answered carefully. "That's the Terra system. Humans. Humans. A young race newly broken into faster than light. The Council barely recognized them. Too primitive, most said. Too small to matter." "They're our only option," Jan said. "Maybe ignorance will shield us from fear." The fleet turned toward the yellow sun. As Jan walked the corridors, he passed families, packed into narrow quarters, rationing scraps. Children played with broken toys while parents whispered despair. In the infirmary, Dr. Kyung bent over an elderly woman, her breath shallow. "How long?" Jan asked softly. "A week." "Maybe." Kyung didn't look up. "She's the 3rd this month." Jan didn't reply. He didn't need to. They both knew. The Cathori had survived hatred for 3 years, but they couldn't endure failing ships and empty stores much longer. Jan walked past workshops where engineers patched metal with junk, classrooms where teachers spoke of worlds lost, and the memorial wall carved with thousands of names. Too many names, too much loss. Back on the bridge, the stars shifted slowly toward human space. Nobody spoke. Hope was a knife, and they'd learned its cut too many times. 3 days to the human system, Summon reported. 3 days to find whether kindness still lived in the galaxy, or if the Cathori would finally die among the stars. Jan studied his reflection in the viewport. Pale blue skin, wide, light-sensitive eyes, features that terrified others. A monster, a thief, a threat. Inside, he was only weary. Weary of flight, of watching his people fade, of carrying guilt for crimes he had never committed. Soon they would know if humans were different, or the same as all others in this cold, merciless galaxy. Captain Hannah sat in the pilot seat of the diplomatic vessel peace. Her hands trembled faintly as she rechecked comms. Behind her, the refugee fleet waited at the edge of human space. "Ready, Captain?" asked her co-pilot, Lieutenant J1. Barely 30, far too young, yet still believing they might one day find mercy. "As ready as I'll ever be," Hannah whispered. She had done this before, 4, maybe 7 times. Each time the answer had been rejection. Some had been polite. Some had threatened annihilation. All had turned them away. The piece glided forward toward human orbitals. Hannah studied their crude ships, simple compared to galactic fleets. But maybe simplicity was a blessing. Maybe they didn't yet know enough to hate. "Human vessels, this is Captain Hannah of the Cathori diplomatic ship," she broadcast on every channel. "We request permission to speak with your leaders." The weight stretched, heavy. J1 tapped nervous fingers on the console. Human fighters moved into escort formation, their weapons crude, laughable by galactic standards. Then a voice came, rough and accented. "Cathori vessel, this is Admiral Dongwan of Earth Defense. We've been expecting you." Hannah froze. "Expecting us?" "News spreads fast," the Admiral continued. "We know what befell your people. Please dock at our station. You'll have food and rest while we hear your story." J1 stared at her, eyes wide. Food. Rest. No species had given them even that. Hospitality in 3 years. Most had refused even basic repairs. Admiral Hannah spoke carefully. "You do realize the Galactic Council has branded us dangerous? Any who aid us will face punishment." There was silence. Then Admiral Dongwan laughed. Not cruelly, but with warm amusement. "Captain, my people fought 2 world wars and nearly burned our planet down before we learned to live together. We don't fear the Council's opinion." An hour later, Hannah sat in a soft chair within the human command station. The walls bore images of Earth, blue seas, green forests, mountains capped with snow. She had not seen beauty like this in years. Admiral Dongwan, a middle-aged man with gray hair and kind eyes, listened in silence as Hannah recounted their history, the experiments that had gone wrong, the punishment that followed, the generations of exile. "So you see," Hannah concluded, "we carry the guilt of our ancestors. The galaxy condemns us all for the sins of a few scientists long dead." Dongwan stood quietly, then walked to the viewport, gazing at the stars. "Captain, let me tell you about humans. We have a saying, the sins of the father should not be visited upon the son. Children are not bound to their parents' crimes." "The Council doesn't see it that way," Hannah whispered. "The Council can shove their rules into a black hole," Dongwan said flatly. Hannah blinked at his casual dismissal of the galaxy's greatest power. "We've seen what happens to those who don't fit their precious mold," he continued. "The cybernetic next punished for enhancing with machines, the hive-minded resonance feared for thinking as one, and your people condemned for the madness of scientists' long dust. Humanity believes in second chances, Captain. We judge by deeds, not ancestry." That evening, Hannah watched with awe as human leaders assembled in emergency session. She had expected long debate, political wrangling, endless delays. Instead, the decision came in under 20 minutes. President Kyung, a young woman who reminded Hannah of her own daughter, stood before them. "The choice is simple," she declared. "Do we help those in need, or turn away because others command us to fear? I vote to open Earth's doors to the Cathori." The vote was decisive. Of 300 representatives, only 12 opposed. Sanctuary. As Hannah relayed the news to Commander Jwin and the fleet, tears streaked her face. For the first time in 3 years, they were welcome. For the first time since exile began, someone had looked at the Cathori and seen people, not criminals. "Welcome to Seoul," Admiral Dongwan said as the refugee ships entered human space. "Welcome home." Behind them, automated relays already notified the Council of Earth's decision. The replies would not be friendly. Sanctions would come. Threats would follow. Others would demand Earth relent. But watching the first Cathori children step onto human stations, their faces alight with wonder, Dongguan knew his people had chosen well. Sometimes the right path meant standing alone against the stars. Sometimes the exiled found one another. Dr. Summon stood on the Mars Station observation deck, watching the red world slowly change hue. Where once there had been only rust-colored dust and barren stone, now showed patches of green spreading like miracles across the surface. The terraforming effort was advancing faster than anyone had dared hope. "The atmospheric processors are performing flawlessly," said Engineer J1, stepping beside her at the viewport. His tablet glowed with numbers that made both of them smile. "At this pace, Mars will be breathable in 5 years instead of 50. Sin nodded, though her face remained thoughtful. "Your species learns at astonishing speed, J1. Most take centuries to grasp terraforming. Humans master it within months." Below, human and Kethmari workers toiled side by side in biodomes. Children of both kinds laughed together in artificial gardens, their voices echoing beneath glass walls. Such a sight could not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. "Dr. Summon," J1 asked softly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you truly helping us? Your people possess knowledge we desperately need. You could demand almost anything in return. Yet you share it freely." Summon was quiet, recalling the day the refugee fleet had first arrived. Humanity's leaders hadn't asked what the Kethmari could trade for safety. They had simply opened their doors and said, "How can we help?" "Because your kind sees us as people," she answered at last. "Not as weapons, not as genetic thieves, just people needing a home." Their words were cut short by Commander Hun Wu of Earth Defense. His expression was grave as he handed over a secure comms device. "Apologies for interrupting," he said, "but there's a problem." The hologram flared to life, showing shipping routes across human space. Red icons marked freighters turned away from alien ports. Yellow symbols flagged unanswered diplomatic requests. Orange warnings highlighted new defense platforms rising at the edges of human territory. "Council sanctions are escalating," Hun Wu explained. "No species will trade with us. They're severing our access to medicine, rare metals, advanced processors, everything needed to sustain our colonies." J1 frowned. "How long can we endure?" 6 months before outer colonies face collapse. A year before Earth itself feels the strain. A heavy weight settled on Summon's chest, the guilt carried by every Kethmari. Her people were endangering their only allies. "This is our fault," she whispered. "We've brought ruin on you. Perhaps we should leave before—" "No." J1's reply was sharp. "Don't even suggest it. We made our decision with clear eyes. We knew there'd be consequences. But your people will suffer because of us. Our people are already prospering because of you," Hun Wu countered, pointing toward the green scars on Mars's surface. "Look what 6 months of partnership has done. Our colonies expand faster than ever. Our agriculture thrives. Our grasp of genetics and biology has leapt forward by decades." It was undeniable. Human ingenuity and adaptability, fused with Kethmari wisdom and experience, had created marvels neither could have achieved alone. But the cost grew heavier by the day. "Commander," Dr. Summon said, voice low, "there's something else. Our intelligence networks are detecting unusual military shifts. The Council isn't only planning isolation, they're preparing something more direct." Hun Wu's face hardened. "What kind of direct?" "The kind that sails under battleship banners," Summon replied grimly. Later that night, the 3 of them gathered in J1's modest quarters on Mars Station, sharing a meal of Earth rice mixed with Kethmari-grown proteins. Beyond the windows, 2 moons glowed in a salmon sky, while human Kethmari settlements flickered with light across the surface. "My daughter asked me something yesterday," J1 said between bites. "She wanted to know why other aliens don't like her Kethmari friends. I didn't know how to answer." "What did you tell her?" Sin asked. "I told her that people sometimes fear what they don't understand. And fear doesn't make something evil, only different." Dr. Sin smiled faintly, sadness in her eyes. "Your daughter has more wisdom than most of the galaxy. She's growing up where differences are valued instead of shunned," Hunwoo observed. "That's worth defending." As if his words summoned fate, alarms erupted through the station. Red lights flashed, comms crackled. "All personnel," Admiral Dongwan's voice thundered. "Long-range sensors report a fleet advancing on the system's edge. Council ships, heavy numbers, all citizens prepare for potential combat." The three exchanged grim looks across the table. They had always known this moment would come. The galaxy had decided that humanity's experiment of acceptance had gone too far. Outside, the Martian dusk deepened, stars beginning to shine. Soon those stars would swarm with vessels carrying weapons, threats, demands. The price for sheltering. Kethmari lives. But within the station, humans and Kethmari still shared dinners. Children played in hallways. Scientists labored together on breakthroughs that could uplift all civilizations. Some things deserved to be defended, no matter the odds. Lieutenant Sun Woo floated in his fighter's cockpit, eyes wide as the Council fleet ripped from hyperspace like a cloud of furious steel wasps. 312 warships, including the massive dreadnought Purity's Edge, twice the size of any vessel humanity had ever forged. "Sun Woo, you seeing this?" His wingman's voice crackled over comms. "How the hell do we fight that?" Sun Woo touched the small crystal mounted on his helmet. A Kethmari biointerface, forbidden anywhere else in the galaxy. Here, though, humans and Kethmari had built something new. "We don't fight head-on," he replied, letting the crystal expand his perception. Magnetic fields hummed into view. Planetary gravities tugged at him. Even the subtle swirl of dust between stars revealed itself. "We fight smart." On Earth Defense Station's bridge, Admiral Dongwan faced the projection of Admiral Khan, the Council's enforcement commander. Khan's body resembled a towering gray tree with too many limbs, his voice heavy with the power of one never denied. "Humans of Earth," Admiral Khan declared, "you have broken galactic law by harboring genetic criminals. Hand over the Kethmari refugees now, and your punishment will remain minor." Dongwan scanned the bridge, at humans and Kethmari officers united at their posts. Behind him stood Captain Hannah, his closest counselor through these difficult months. "Admiral Khan?" Dongwan replied evenly. Galactic law had been studied thoroughly. Nowhere was it written that sanctuary couldn't be granted to refugees. Earth would always stand with the innocent. "The Kethmari are far from innocent," Kieran's tone flared in anger. "They are gene raiders, corrupting everything they touch." "The only corruption I see," Dongwan countered, "is the hatred you're spreading across the stars. If you want the Kethmari, you'll have to go through us." The Council fleet shifted into attack lines. Their vessels were sleek, powerful, equipped with weapons that could rend planets. The human defense craft looked like toys drifting against a raging storm. Yet in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something unforeseen stirred. Captain Yuna guided her hybrid marines through zero gravity, sliding between rocks with impossible fluidity. Half her squad were humans who had accepted the Kethmari enhancement. The rest were young Kethi raised on human strategies. "Remember," she whispered over comms, "they expect us to fight like a standard military. They don't know what we've become." Her augmented vision pierced rock, reading heat signatures. Her reflexes bent momentum itself, changing direction instantly. Most crucial, her hybrid team moved as one mind, linked by banned bioneural channels the Council feared. The first wave of Council fighters swept in, expecting helpless prey. Instead, they entered a labyrinth where stone moved like living beasts. Sun Wu's fighter darted through spinning giants, the tumbling paths chaotic to the eye. But through his Kaith Mori interface, he felt gravity itself as rhythm, leading his squadron in lethal patterns, appearing and vanishing like ghosts. "What are they doing?" came the terrified voice on Council comms. "The asteroids! They're moving!" Indeed, Yuna's Marines had seeded gravity manipulators across the belt, technology once designed for terraforming. Now, colossal rocks became weapons, hurled with surgical timing. Admiral Kieran stared in disbelief as his superior fleet unraveled. Human fighters wove through space as if clairvoyant. Human Marines breached his ships through passages no normal soldier could navigate. Each adaptation was met by stranger tactics. "Sir," the tactical officer stammered, "we're losing faster than we kill. This defies sense. They're wielding physics itself against us." In orbit above Earth, Commander Jan captained a Kai refugee ship retooled as a hospital vessel. Wounded fighters limped back, where his people worked with human surgeons to preserve life. Keith Mori, healing that restored limbs blended with human skill to create wonders. "Commander," called, "Dr. Kyung, incoming wounded from the belt. It's Lieutenant Sun Wu. His craft took a direct strike." Jan's chest tightened. Sun Wu had become like a son in recent months, the young pilot who had embraced perilous enhancements to defend strangers. When they pulled him from his shattered ship, half his body was torn and burned, yet his eyes still blazed with will. "Did we stop them?" he whispered. Through the medbay window, the remains of the Council fleet crawled toward the system's edge. Over half lay destroyed or crippled, the rest fleeing in desperation. "Yes," Jan answered softly, gripping his hand. "We stopped them." 4. The first time in galactic record, a Council armada had fallen to a species long dismissed as primitive. And news would race to every star. Earth had faced the unthinkable and triumphed. President Kyung stood at the vast viewing glass of New Geneva Station, watching ships from 17 species arrive at the ever-expanding orbital hub. 6 months had passed since Earth's stand against the Council fleet, and the galaxy shifted in ways no one foresaw. "Madam President," called her aide, Minister Sumin, Earth's first alien cabinet member. "The next delegation has arrived, requesting immediate asylum." Through the window, Kyung observed their vessels. Immense, floating citadels of metal, hulls bristling with lights and mechanical limbs. For decades, the Council had pursued the Nex, branding them machine-tainted for choosing cybernetic augmentation. "How many?" Kyung asked. 2 million, Sumin replied. "Their world fell last week. They are the last of their kind. 2 million beings, desperate for shelter, food, and hope. It should have been an unbearable burden for humanity's young civilization. Yet these days, impossibility was humanity's specialty. On Europa Station's workshops, Engineer J1 labored beside creatures that once haunted Council nightmares. A Nex technician, 6 mechanical arms in constant motion, helped shape new starship, drives. A crystalline resonant, part of a hive mind intelligence, offered calculations beyond the reach of any single mind. "Conversion is still too low," J1 muttered, eyeing the holographic schematics. The resonant pulsed softly as it relayed data across its mind link. "Our collective suggests rerouting plasma through the 7th iteration matrix. Efficiency increases by 37%. J1 smiled wide. In half a year, working with so-called dangerous species had taught him more than his entire education. "Let's test it," he said eagerly. Meanwhile, on Mars, Lieutenant Sun Wu strolled through rehabilitation gardens, flexing his new prosthetic arm. Crafted from Nex cybernetics and Keth Mori biology, the limb was stronger, keener than his old flesh had ever been. At his side walked Yuki, a young Kethmari born during exile, seeing a natural world for the first time. Every tree and blossom amazed her. "Uncle Sunwoo," she asked, using the title of trust among her people, "why do the council hate us?" He paused, then answered, "They fear. They believe only one way exists to live. When they meet families like yours, or the Nex, or the resonance, they see difference, and difference frightens them." Yuki frowned. "But difference is good. My friend Haruto is human. He thinks differently, and that's why we solve problems together." Sun Wu ruffled her hair with a grin. "Exactly. You know what the galaxy forgot for millennia. Change spread beyond human realms. Across the stars, long-oppressed species found courage. On Kepler 442, workers rose against their council-appointed masters. In the Vega system, 3 races declared independence and formed their own pact. Admiral Dwan received constant reports of growing unrest. Rebellions flared across dozens of worlds. Trade routes crumbled as peoples defied council law. The order that had ruled for centuries fractured like spring ice. "Sir," Commander Hunwoo reported, "a request for aid from Tau Ceti rebels. They ask for weapons." Dwan shook his head. "We don't start wars, but we'll send something better. Teachers, engineers, doctors, people to help them build instead of destroy." Deep within New Harmony Station, the galaxy's first diversity institute grew into something extraordinary, a place where every species shared and learned freely. Dr. Suman worked with scholars from 43 worlds, studying everything from new mathematics to breakthrough medicine. "The results are remarkable," she told President Kyung during their weekly session. "When species collaborate voluntarily, innovation multiplies. Council segregation wasn't just cruel, it was wasteful." But the greatest change was visible in children. Human kids chased Keth-Mori youngsters across Martian gardens. Nexuri adolescents raced through zero-gravity arenas beside humans. Resonant hatchlings shared hive visions with peers from a dozen cultures. They grew in a galaxy where difference was celebrated, cooperation was ordinary, and the idea of superiority seemed absurd. On the bridge of the starship New Beginning, Admiral Jan watched the newest refugees dock. They were Zephrites, gentle beings who spoke through shifting skin colors. The council had branded them primitive, forcing them into re-education camps. "Welcome to Earth space," Jan said through a translator. "Welcome home." Behind him, his diverse crew of humans, Keth Mori, Nexuri, and Resonance, worked in seamless unity. They no longer called themselves separate allies. They were becoming something altogether new. The galaxy was transforming. The old laws were crumbling. And, in the heavens around a small blue planet, the future was being forged, one refugee vessel at a time.